Hey folks, in this video example we're going to show you how we rebuilt the Delta Dental locator using MetaLocator. We're going to start this video like we usually do, and that's with a brief kind of tear down or critique of the locator that we find. And so this is Delta Dental's locator. This is the results after me just kind of looking for results near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where I am. And I just want to point out a couple things. One is the form, I think, has far too many inputs in it. Ultimately, you really want to lead with what is going to be most important. And so I see that obviously we've got specialties, we've got the networks that they're in. I imagine that those are pretty important things, so it's good that they led with those first. I want to talk about the radius briefly. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine. Radius drop-downs set up a user experience where the user would search, for example, within 5 miles, not find what they want, have to go back and adjust the radius in sequential searches, subsequent searches, in order to continually expand in order to find good results. And the default is usually relatively arbitrary. So 15 miles in Manhattan, New York, as compared to 15 miles in Manhattan, Kansas. Now, if you're in Kansas, the closest dentist may not be 15 miles from you, but if you're in Manhattan, New York, you might find 1,000 dentists within 15 miles. And so the radius dropdown for that and many other reasons is really just kind of a thing of the past. Most locators in MetaLocator, you'll find, don't have a radius dropdown. We present results ordered by distance, so you see the nearest ones to you regardless of how far away they are. That ensures that whether you're in Manhattan, New York or Manhattan, Kansas, you're going to get relevant results. So I would love to see that radius drop down just kind of die and go away. The next thing is this distance or sort by drop down. Aside from name, I don't see a huge amount of value here. Even name is kind of hard to justify, especially if you're searching by name. You don't really need to sort by name if you've already searched by name. So the distance, city, and zip code are all basically going to give you some of the same types of results. So that I don't know that I would even include in this search form. The other piece that I'll mention is this top 50, top 100, top 150. If you are evaluating 200 dentists, you've got quite a fine-tooth comb, and I think honestly that this control could be completely eliminated as long as you present a useful amount of results in the first page of results, and you allow people to go past that by paging through results. Listing out 200 on a page, I can't imagine a situation where that would ever be relevant. And so honestly, I would remove that. They have this more options, less options thing. I admit I didn't actually see that the first time I did this, so maybe make it a little bit bolder. They've got last name. This is really important when you want to find a specific dentist, so I'd imagine this would be useful for searching by if you knew the dentist's name or the office. And these are all great. These various attributes here, the languages spoken, whether or not they're accepting new patients, gender, all that stuff, I think is great. So other than that, simplifying that search form, I think would be wonderful. Here we are now in the results, and one thing I wanted to point out is that this locator does another thing that kind of drives me batty, and that's when I'm looking at the list, I can't tell visually which result on the map a result in the list corresponds to. So I've got 5, 6 results here. I've only got 2 map marker icons, and I'm guessing because many of these folks are co-located. But it would be great if when I hovered my mouse over William O'Brien, the icon on the map popped up. I noticed that you can actually click these and you can see these 2 results, but that doesn't necessarily account for like where is David on this map and help me kind of visually orient myself around those particular results. So Other than that, I think these results cards are great. They tell you the type of dentist, whether or not they're accepting different types of insurance, and then they also have this amenity and category attribute list, which I think is great, and then this will view more and less information. So with that critique, we're going to now switch over to MetaLocator, and we're going to build this locator from scratch. So this is the locator that I've built so far. I'm not really trying to make this pixel perfect with the Delta Dental Locator, but I am trying to reproduce the functionality that they have. And so in this case, we're going to start with the style and color settings that I've chosen. Obviously, the primary color I took off their website. It's this lovely green, and that immediately transforms the interface to use that green. They have their own custom font, which outside of like purchasing it, I wouldn't have access to, and so I chose a good alternative, which looks to be Railway, so I just picked that from the drop-down. I also made this secondary color just a almost full black, which I think is what they're using as well. Everything else I left the same, and I with respect to the font, and I changed the border radius to 0, and that gives us these square corners on everything. By default, there's a slight rounding of the border. But other than that, all of the styles are the defaults, and so those are the only style and color changes that we made. Now, if you're jumping ahead to see how the search form was built, I want you to maybe revisit the critique part where we built where we reviewed the Delta Dental Locator. There's a lot of things that I don't love about this search form, and so I'd hate for you to follow and just create it without thinking about it. But part of these videos is to show how you can build a locator you've been asked to build, even if it's not exactly the following MetaLocator's best practices. So I'm over here in the search form settings. The first element that we have is a category dropdown. So to add that, you can just click Add Field, choose Category from the dropdown list, and drop it in. So if I expand the options here, you'll notice that we're only showing specialties in this dropdown. The effect is a dropdown for specialty, this word participating in, or the phrase, and then a dropdown for insurance. And so to do that, we've added the category twice. So you can see category here and category here. And the second category is filtered to display only categories in the insurance group, whereas the first one is only showing categories in the specialty group. And that creates two category dropdowns for us, one where we can choose specialty, one where we can choose insurance. The way that I added this participating in blurb or phrase is by clicking Add Field and then adding a special field called Text. And so if you click on text, you can type in just a little bit of text. In this case, it was participating in, creating this kind of breakout of the search form. This search form design represents a relatively old school paradigm where you would try to have the user basically assemble an English sentence by choosing the drop downs. That can get you into a lot of trouble when it comes to internationalization, when you tie the ordering of UX elements in kind of a lexicographic order, but like as they would appear in a sentence, if I'm using that word correctly. And so I would generally avoid that, but again, we're making the locator here. We're not necessarily tied straight to best practices. So they had a kind of break in their search form, and so we've done that by adding this line break. That again, this is another special field. You can add it, just add line break, and that will kick every following element down one line. And then they've got radius added in front of the location search. And so radius has been added just as it is with no options changed. Location was added with autofill checked. This is where the user's detected location string is populated. Sometimes it's a zip code, sometimes it's a string like you see here, like Milwaukee County, just kind of depending on the lat long that's available. The other thing that we're using is our advanced toggle, and so this is a button that allows you to separate search inputs that are in the advanced container as compared to the basic container. And so I've added in here the keyword search. So if you expand more options, you will see the two elements that we've added to this advanced container. We've added keyword, and we've also added another category dropdown. That makes it the third one that is only showing gender options. And so we have male, female listed in the drop-down list, and then we also have keyword. Now, if you are a pro or higher user, keyword also includes this cool auto-complete feature that will auto-suggest locations. It's not very exciting because all of our locations are sample location, but you get the idea. And so that is basically what we've done to create the search form. Okay, we just show you how we made the search form, and now we're going to dive into the results cards. They have basically the list, and then they also have the map pop-up. The Delta Dental Locator actually used this very tiny map pop-up, which I'm not hugely excited about, and so I like our default better, so I'm just going to leave it there. So no changes were made to that map pop-up, but I did spend a decent amount of time in the list, and so that's where we're going to start. This makes a really cool use, I think, of the result number. So you see 1, 2, 3 next to the name of the result, and then it's immediately followed by the title. By default, the title I think is going to be black, and so one of the things that I did is I changed the text color to be the success text color, and I just wanted to point out that success, that word success, comes from the style and color settings. You have a primary color, a secondary color, you have an info color, a warning color, a danger color, and a dark color. All of those colors end up with those labels that are used in these style dropdowns. So success text throughout the application will use that bright green that's defined under style and color. And generally speaking, they are labeled that way because they represent real states that you might find in an application. So success might be something that happened successfully, and you would want that not to be bright red and flashing, right? That's why danger is the red color that it is, and it allows you to refer to those styles semantically. So in any case, that's why the title is green. And so moving down the list, we have the result number, we have the title, and then we have a small category list. This is only going to show specialties, so this works just like in the search form where we are limiting the contents of this category display to only show specialties. So I have a couple here with one specialty, and then if you scroll down, there's a couple that have like a bunch of specialties. I don't think that dentistry usually works that way. Like usually if you're an endodontist, you're not also an oral surgeon, but I could be wrong. But it supports the ability to display a single result or multiple comma-separated results. In order to do that comma trick, I'm using this category comma list style. And so you'll also notice that it's muted text, which is a slightly lighter font, which is something that I took from the display. It seemed a little bit lighter in the display. So that is the category list. And moving our way down, I wanted to point out that the Delta Dental Locator makes use of a few custom fields. So here, the name of the practice is an example of a custom field, and there were like education, the doctor of dental surgery, that might be a custom field. I don't want to fill too many custom fields in this template because typically they never correspond to customer accounts. And so I have this one custom field here shown as an example, and you can see here it's the word clinic here, down here it's custom value. The way that I did that is I just clicked add and I added that custom field there. And then I also styled it with a bold text to give it that same kind of treatment that we have for the address. So that's an example of a custom field included in the results. The next one I wanted to point out was distance. We have this distance added, and you can see this coding, this %0.1f. That's probably the most common that I use, and that basically tells us this is a decimal number, and we should only display one decimal point, followed by the words miles away. And so I've also floated that off to the right, and that's why you see that style listed there. And I've also included this map marker icon directly there. And then I've also put in text success for the icon class, which is what makes that icon turn green. And so that will make sure that that always matches the primary color. So that's the custom field and the distance. And then just moving down, we have a couple interesting classes here. ML text underline underlines this particular display. Another one of my pet peeves is using a lot of different ways to represent something that's clickable. I think when you present an application, you have an opportunity to establish a dialogue with a user, basically like, okay, you can click on things that are underlined, or you can click on things that are green, or click on things that look like a button. I think you should be as consistent as possible with that dialogue, or that language you've established. And the Delta Dental locator bounces around a lot on things that are clickable versus not clickable. Like if the view more information is green underlined, this one down here, suggested directory update, is black underlined for some reason. So some things are black, some things are green, and some are underlined and some are not. So that can get a little crazy for the user to interpret. Moving down, again, we're making a lot of use of category lists in this. This one is a dropdown that just shows insurance categories, and we're using the tag list description dropdown for category lists. So that shows not only the category, but it also shows its description. And if you're not familiar with category descriptions, you can go into each category. And we could see, for example, the PPO category. I could open that up, and under category options, I can specify that there's a description. So this can contain HTML, it can contain kind of long form text, and that is a great opportunity to show a decent amount of text underneath a particular category. So that's the category list. And then finally, link to details in their case was this expand collapse guy. I just put that in our details entry, and so this is the details pane. We haven't made too many changes there, but that's just a way of displaying details. And then the other one is this suggest directory update. So this is a feature that in MetaLocator we call this crowdsourcing. So when the user comes to this, they would have the ability to suggest changes to this particular location basically by filling out this form. And so those changes would go into a staging area for the maintainer of this directory to review. Under crowdsourcing, you can even grant the end user a username and password that they can use to maintain this profile. So if if I work at 255 West Ryan Road and I know that our phone number changed and I want to be able to maintain this profile, MetaLocator supports providing that facility through our crowdsourcing plugin. And so that, I think, concludes how we've set up this directory. Just a few more things to cover in this particular locator under layout settings. One thing you might notice is that this dentist locator has a little tiny map and a big directory. The way that you can do that in MetaLocator is under layout, and you can choose the size of the list width. Now ours goes from auto to 1/3 to half to quarter, and so in this example I've made that half. If I wanted to adjust it even further, some custom CSS could be provided, but off the shelf we provide up to a 50-50 split. And the last thing that I'll point out is that we have updated this locator to automatically display the nearest 10 results to the user without them performing any particular search. And so under results, you'll find that under the initial state as show nearest. That's something that we always recommend. So any dentists within 200 miles, 10 dentists within 200 miles will automatically be displayed. Hopefully that means that the user won't have to provide any search at all, and that most people will come to this and immediately see what they want. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Please leave a comment if you have any questions about how we did one thing or another, or if you'd like to see us build a locator that you like. Thanks.